I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth, and today I have across the table world-class shooters. They're fast, they're accurate. I have Jessie Harrison and Casey Eusebio. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mentioned those things just in passing, but fast, accurate champions. That, like, in 3 words. How do you guys get so good at shooting so fast and so accurately?
He's the fast one.
Well, you know what? I think I have a little bit of an advantage of being Filipino.
Okay.
I think this started at a young age. Both of us, our fathers got us into it. Was very disciplined at an early age. I started dry firing at the age of 7. My dad wouldn't even let me go and shoot a competition until he felt like I was ready. It took 6 months where he was like, okay, now you've got the green light before you can shoot.
Wow.
So I was just, I got home, elementary school. Before I did homework, I would get my holster out. I'd pull out the 1911, make sure, we had dud bullets, and I would dry fire for a good hour.
Wow.
300 draws, 300 reloads, different positions, working on kneeling, going prone.
You do your push-ups too.
Oh yeah, and beforehand you had to warm up. You had to do push-ups. You had to do rabbit jumps, which were like, you get on the ground and squat jump, and then and some abs.
This is like a military training camp.
Oh yeah, and I had it all written down on the wall, like what I had to do. I did it religiously. It wasn't where I'll skip strong hand today or I'll skip reloads today. No, it was I did it religiously at a young age. So I guess it came supernatural. And then a good little hack was I used to have a PlayStation. It had Area 51 and it had Die Hard on it.
Oh, remember the pause music on Die Hard?
Oh, so good. So good. And my dad put a red dot on it and he goes, hey, should I put weights on this? Because this is a plastic gun. Lime green, taped it with a Tasco red dot sight on there. Goes, should I put weights? And, you shoot and you're like, he goes, you don't need weights. This thing is heavy enough. Your arms are up the whole time. It's just like if you were striking, your arms are up the whole time. So same thing. You had the gun up the whole time. And I knew where everything was. So speed was like so fast. My eye speed was so quick because it was a video game.
Yeah.
And, I did all that. And when I went to the range, it just translated to speed.
That is super cool. That structure and then that discipline from a young age. I know there's a lot of us, me included. No, not going to happen at that age. It's like I had discipline, but not like that. And that's pretty cool that your father took such a systematic approach. It kind of reminded me of there's a boxer out of Ukraine, Vasyl Lomachenko.
Oh, I love his footwork.
His dad took him out of boxing
to dance.
Yeah. Knowing that you don't want to dance. You don't want to go to dance class for a year. Best footwork. He's boxing dudes from the side because nobody can keep up with him.
He's the man.
Yeah. So that's very similar.
Yeah, very much so. And, my dad was very martial art oriented. He was a black belt in Japanese Shotokan karate, and he taught in Subic Bay in the Philippines. And, till this day, it almost translates to like, I treat the shooting sports like a martial arts. And, we train military primarily, and the legacy continues because that's, the big picture is being able to help your nation, being a patriot, being an ex-Army guy myself. Like, I want to be able to go out there and give the skills to make sure that you come home to your family. It's not just shooting sports. It's actually giving back. And
that's awesome. They are certainly related.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Within competition breeds some skills, and you can share those skills. And when you can share stuff like that with a war fighter, that is super cool.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps.
Yep. Well, I love it. Well, thanks for what you guys do. And because of your extensive background starting at a young age in training, Jessie, your career in shooting sports, from cowboy action shooting to all the other stuff you've done, what I wanted to do with this podcast is address a huge community of shooters that I myself am in. So we've got all these millions of new gun owners who, prior to COVID, weren't gun owners at all, plus all of the gun owners before COVID that have handguns, that love shooting handguns. And I grew up loving to shoot in general, just love to shoot, but also love to shoot handguns. But for us, when we would go shoot, like say with my father and family, there was a hay field that I've talked about. We called it the meadow, and it was 3 hay fields connected. So you could stretch out If you shot
Oh, yeah.
diagonal and the hay was cut, you could shoot to 12 or 1,500 yards. Well, we would take pistols, and my uncle got a new Kimber 1911, and we would shoot pistols, but it was never competitive. Oh,
Right.
few guys
You have
shooting in
your
the
own
hayfield.
internally.
Yeah. Everything's competitive.
Yeah.
But it was never like, oh, I can't wait to shoot a pistol competition. And then as I grew up as a shooter, I kind of more gravitated toward long gun stuff, but always have pistols, always enjoy shooting pistols. And there's a lot of us in the shooting community in that world. And then there's also a big community of, this is where I'm in now. Oh, I like to shoot pistols and I like to compete shooting competitive pistol. That's really fun. But you can only go so far by yourself. You can only do so much. And there's a lot of us in there where, gosh, if I just had a little bit of guidance, if I just had, if I didn't have to watch 13 YouTube videos to find the one that that helped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's that learning curve can be as steep or as shallow as the internet wants to make it. And that's with anything, where you're trying to educate yourself. So with your expertise, I'd really like to address, okay, novice pistol competitor, or maybe somebody on the edge. And I've preached this. Matt, our shooting sports manager, he's preaching this. If there are shooting sports around you, you need to go compete because it is so fun and the community is so welcoming.
Yes.
And you'll learn a lot more just going to a match and watching and competing in your first match than you will watching 20 hours of YouTube.
Yeah, or shooting cans in the backyard.
Yeah, which you
is
should
great.
still shoot cans in the backyard.
Which is great.
Yeah,
but
it only takes you so far.
Yes.
So I want to bend your ear about, okay, you're on the verge about competing, or you just got in and maybe you had your butt handed to you a little bit, which we've all been there.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe not. I've certainly been there.
I've been there.
So
I've been there.
I'd like to address it in 3 segments. I'd like to start off with, okay, you have your pistols. Of the pistols you have, or if you're looking to make a new purchase, what are you looking for maybe in a production type gun to go compete with? And then once you have that selected, now there's some other auxiliary equipment, holsters, magazine holsters, magazines themselves. How do you like to set your belt up?
Yeah.
What kind of belt system are you running? What would you recommend there? And then, okay, now you've got your equipment. How do you train for the novice? And what are some things that you can do as a novice that even if you become a grand champion, that you'll continue to do throughout that whole journey?
Yeah.
What are some of those basic things that'll just help get you ahead of the pack, ahead of the curve just a little bit? So with that, you go to get a firearm that you want to compete in a production capacity.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in that? Whether that be the barrel or the grip angle or adjustable stuff where you can put different back straps in. What are you looking for if you think, okay, I'm not running a decked out 2011. I'm just trying to spend, and get a reliable, good running firearm.
I would say, first and foremost, find the handgun that fits you, that you're comfortable with, that you can shoot confidently and well. You're going to, for competition purposes, you're going to want to lean towards a full-size frame and more than likely a 5.5 inch barrel, as opposed to a compact firearm that you would use for concealed carry. And for that reason, you're going to want as much grip contact as possible and hand contact on the grip. And then the little bit longer barrel is going to give you a better sight radius if you're using iron sights, and it's going to help mitigate recoil. And then when you're picking your caliber, it's kind of going to be dependent on the division you're wanting to get started in. But, for this conversation's sake, you're getting started in production, then you're only allowed to shoot 9mm. So that kind of takes any guesswork out of it. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents, is find a gun that fits good in your hand, that's comfortable, that you can shoot well, and lean towards the full-size frame.
Sure.
Yeah, in the competition realm, there's a few divisions that have just taken off. You've got pistol caliber carbine for people that you want 4 points of contact with a rifle that shoots 9mm, and it's just, you don't have to draw, which makes it really easy. Another division that's taken off is carry optics, where it's a gun that you would actually use as an everyday carry tool, which is really nice, and you stay in the 9mm. The power factor is low, so there's low recoil. And then the newest division that's like really hot is limited optics. So it's a 2011 with a slide right optic on there. No compensator, no long magazines. So it's
and
almost
9mm.
And 9mm. So it's almost like carry optics, just a little bit more luxurious. So if you're you're driving a Toyota, now you've got a Lexus. Chevy,
similar
GMC.
experience.
Yeah.
The difference would be having a Glock or an M&P or an XD in production, and you can now shoot a Staccato 2011.
Yeah, hammer fired.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In limited optics.
Yeah.
So
It can be a little nerve wracking. Is your first competition? You're like, what do I do here? So you don't necessarily need to go to your first competition and think you're going to shoot. Just go out there and watch, meet people, shake hands, trade numbers, and ask questions ultimately, because people are going to give you the answers, and they want to give you the answers to get you out on the range. So the next Saturday, the next Sunday, you come back out, you're like, oh, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. So ask questions and don't be afraid to introduce yourself. And, if you're an introvert, it's okay. A lot of people out there are introverts too, and they just want to bring you into the fold.
Yeah.
I've noticed that in every shooting sport, that the community is generally really, really positive and really welcoming. And the individuals that don't fit that mold, they don't stick around. You might see them for a few matches, a few months, maybe a year, whatever. But eventually, it's not fun for them when they just, nobody wants to interact with them.
Yeah.
The groups kind of police themselves, especially at the local level.
Yeah.
And at the local level, they're extremely welcoming. I tell people, find your local match, go out, and someone will offer you to use their equipment to shoot the match before the day's over.
Oh, yeah.
And that's up to you if you want. But that's how inviting and helpful everyone is.
Yeah, I've got extra belts, mags, gun setup. So if you wanted to shoot, here, just take this gun, take my holster, here's ammo. And then most of the time after a competition, you go out and get some hole-in-the-wall barbecue, and you have lifelong friends. It's not just, I only see you on Saturdays. Most of the time, these guys will be, at your house, at your wedding, or, big events in your life that really matter.
That is really cool. And that's one thing that's unique about this community, I think. And, this equipment, you can get into it pretty economically, but it can also be really expensive. And one of the odd things that I still find weird, because I just grew up a hayseed in the middle of Nebraska, is you go out to, one of these big matches and you'll see tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And generally it's like theft I've never heard of it.
No.
Oh, no.
And like what you were talking about with sharing equipment, I see this happen over the 11 years that I've competed, or 10 years I've been competing in the long gun sports. I have seen it countless times. Oh, your rifle went down? I got my trainer gun.
Use mine.
And a trainer gun turns out to be like
just as good.
Top
oh my gosh, stiller
it's well
action.
broken in.
Bartline barrel, Manor stock, Leupold Mark V, and they're shooting A-tip bullets that they hand loaded. And they're just, here you go. It's so great to see that, and how it transcends all shooting sports, whether that be the handgun, multi-gun, and then the precision rifle stuff. It's just cool.
Yeah.
So one thing that I would add into what you said was, if you can find a way to try on these pistols, like you said, you want the grip contact and feel what, find what feels good, is if you can find a place where you can actually pull the trigger on them.
Yeah.
Correct.
That goes a long way, because sometimes, that feels pretty good, but it doesn't feel good with, with the way it recoils or whatever.
Yeah. And I'll add to that and say, either find a gun range, a gun store with the indoor gun range where you can rent and try all of the firearms, or when you go out to a local match and you're talking to people, if they offer you to try my gun, see if you like it, take them up on it.
Yeah.
Shoot
it. Yeah,
as
especially
many,
if they're paying for the ammo.
Yeah.
Do it.
Shoot as many of them as you can, because their gun is going to have some modifications that you will probably eventually work your way up to. And you can see how, this is what that gun felt like in the store out of the box, but this is what it could feel like with
a trigger.
Minimal modifications.
Yeah.
So, and that could change your purchase decision. So I would take anyone who offers, hey, try my gun, take them up on it. It's free ammo.
Just the other day, we're at the Heartland Shooting Center.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was like, oh, that's such a nice staccato. And I said, shoot it. He goes, no, are you sure? Shoot it. And he goes,
shoot it. Here.
Okay. Boom, 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 boom. And goes, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was Mason who
Mason.
runs
it was
over
Mason.
there.
Yeah, that's right.
Big dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
Gun
needs a
didn't
big
move in his
hand.
hand. Yeah, the gun did not move in his
It was
hands.
so
It was
flat.
awesome. And it's just so rewarding to be able to give, as opposed to you're just taking. You're giving and sharing experience with somebody that's never been able to pull the trigger on that specific model.
Yep.
It's so heartwarming.
And especially when you get higher end models, then it's like, whoa.
This is nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's like looking through really good glass.
Yeah.
As a hunter, you lock in on a tripod, everything's stable, and you look through a pair of binoculars or spotting scope.
Yep.
And then as you go up the tier in glass quality, it's really hard to go backwards.
It's
Oh,
hard.
it is.
And
yeah.
so, yeah, it's
I
like,
can't.
yeah, so it's kind of similar to that.
Concealed carry, personal protection, or home defense. Only the best will do. Critical defense ammunition, developed to provide the best performance for personal protection, no matter what platform you choose. Delivering consistent, reliable performance. Every single time. When lives are on the line, only the best will do. Hornady Critical Defense Ammunition.
So you go through the steps. You get the pistol that fits your hand, that you can handle the recoil and the way that impulse is and the barrel length and all that. Now, the belt setup for some of this competition is as unique as the people that shoot it.
Yeah.
But there are some similarities. Obviously, everything's on a belt, but there's different brands. And let's just say, for the right-handed shooter, is there some things that you found like, okay, I like to set things up this way, and ultimately they just have to try it for themselves. But I don't know anything about setting up a belt to go to a competition. I've just Neil Davey said, "Here's my belt." What would you guys? How would you broach that auxiliary type of equipment, where the holster, the magazines, the magazine holsters, all of that stuff, the belt itself, and then maybe some other stuff like you need to be cognizant of your belt, footwear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's weird. I think it's a double-edged sword. It's both a curse and a gift. There's so many different brands that your head will spin. You Google
it's overwhelming.
holsters and you'll get thousands of results. Like we just talked about. Go to the range, check out everyone's gear.
Yeah.
Do your research. Maybe jump on a couple forums or ask anyone on social media. It's really easy to DM someone and say, "What holster is that?" And they'll tell you what it is, especially if they're sponsored by that company. And then they'll run you through. I've gone through so many different brands.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. Just like the firearm, it needs to be something that fits to you and feels like it's your own. I think an important thing is when you're running an outside the waistband holster, which is the majority of our career, I like to make sure that when I have that pistol on the side of my hip, I want it away from the body. I don't ever want my muzzle with a loaded firearm or unloaded to be facing towards my leg or my femoral artery. That's crazy to me. Or even my foot. I know people that are grandmaster shooters, masterclass shooters that have, accidents. We're humans. There's going to be mistakes. So if you're able to mitigate that collateral damage, I want to make sure that firearm is facing away from my body at all times. That's something huge for me.
Yeah, and just to add to what you're saying, that doesn't mean it's got to be like canted out this way or anything. It's really just kind of hanging straight down off the side of your hip, as opposed to some people will can it in more to get, so if you're wrist above shoulders, when your hand goes down and your wrist position is like that, they'll set their gun up to where it sits right here, but that's pointed right across your leg.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of putting it on the side of the hip.
So the argument would be it's a slight competitive advantage because the grip angle is presented to the web of my hand more naturally, but the corollary is that the operating end of the gun is not pointed in the direction you'd want it.
Safety first. Safety first.
In regards to what you're mentioning about like position of everything, I would look at it from an efficiency standpoint. When you draw your gun, you want to have it in a place that's going to be the fastest and easiest that you can get to it, because this is a game of speed. So right here, because I'm right-handed and this is on the right side of my body, I want that gun in correlation to where my hand is as close as possible. So whether I'm going from a hands relaxed draw and my hand just has to come right to it, or if I'm up here and my hand just has to drop to it. So I want to position the holster on the belt to where it's sitting right where my hand is going to drop if I'm from a hands relaxed, or where my hand just has to rise to the gun.
Reloads?
And with reloads for your magazine placement, depending on the division, some of that dictates where your mag pouches can go.
Okay.
But if, actually they just changed it. Single stack and production, I think that was the only division where your mag pouches had to be behind the point of your hip on the opposite side of your gun, but you can now have them anywhere. So for your reload, that's going to be the first mag pouch that you go to. So if you're, presented out to target, you're going to drop your hand down. You want to have it exactly right here, and then you come back up and reload, as opposed to coming all the way around here to get my magazine to reload. And then from here, you just work them out to where it's spaced enough that I can grab this magazine and it's not going to hit this one and knock it out. Another thing to think about in terms of holster, it's not so much the brand, the style, what it looks like, what it does, but you want to make sure that one, it's safe and secure, that your gun's not going to fall out of it if it's unlocked, or if you're running, it's not going to fall out of your holster.
Yeah, because you're done with the match if that happens.
Yeah, you're done. You go home. And you want to make sure that it's secure, but when you draw the gun, it's a smooth release, like your gun's not getting hung up on the holster. Those are two important things, in my opinion, more so than the style or the brand of the holster.
I think for new shooters too, it's really funny. I'll be looking at people's rigs or somebody that I don't know if you're new or not, but if I look at mag orientation, sometimes magazines will be facing the opposite way or maybe the rifle way. So instead of bullets facing forward, bullets will be facing rearwards. I'm like, that's not going to be effective. So I don't even say anything. I just go switch it around. And they're like, is that the way? I'm like, that's the way.
That's the way. Well,
that's the way. Yeah.
Casey comes up to you and says, that's the way. You go, yes, sir. Yeah, that is the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was something, just to throw this out. So as we said, there's so many options, so many brands, so many styles. Just to kind of narrow it down, since we gave a bunch of information right here anyway, I would say look for a Kydex style holster.
Yeah.
That's going to offer enough security or tension to hold the firearm, but it's not like a level 4 retention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more secure on the gun than like a skeletonized race type holster. So I would find just like a standard Kydex holster for your pistol in a drop offset fashion, and then your mag pouches that fit on your belt and slide around in whatever way you need them.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a couple questions there. You addressed one of them was the retention. At any point, would you ever want like a positive retention holster where you have like the thumb lever or anything to disengage the retention, or you just use Kydex? And a lot of those Kydex holsters, they have the pinch adjustment where you can kind of control how tight they are.
I'm going to say no to the positive retention where I have to manually disengage it in competition setting.
Sure.
Because that's one more thing that I have to do that could go wrong, or I might not hit perfectly. And then, my draw might be messed up, or it could just pull the gun slightly out of my hand. I drop the gun, something.
Yep.
I'm going to rely on a Kydex holster that provides tension around the trigger guard, or my race holster that I use has tension built within it that I can adjust to make it heavier or lighter, that the gun physically can't fall out forward when it's unlocked. It just has to lift up. So I'm going to go with that. You might have a different answer.
I'm going to agree with this beautiful lady next to me.
I paid him to say that.
Unless you've got a way to unlock the firearm with that, you can incorporate with your draw stroke. So I actually draw with my firearm loaded, because a lot of the times in competition, you have to do a quick, abrupt, violent movement. So for me,
your holster locked.
Yeah.
Firearm's always loaded.
Excuse me. What did I say?
You said I'm going to draw with my firearm loaded. You mean your holster locked?
My holster locked. Yeah. I'm new to English. So say my hands are up and I've got to move from point A to point B. It could be from right here to the end of this table, and I want to get there as fast as possible. I lock my firearm in the holster. So I'm here, but I can draw and unlock it with, say, my middle finger. Yep. If you have that luxury, then yes. If I do like to have the luxury of having a lock period, because once you're done with a course of fire or range is cold, you're not under duress. It's nice to have your firearm locked because you might be picking up brass, you might be taping up targets, you might just be walking, or a slight jog, and if your firearm falls out, that sucks. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're always in retention of your firearm. I've had the luxury of having multiple, whether it's a race rig or it's a Kydex drop offset holster. Just make sure that you're always in retention of your firearm. You always understand that, hey, you've got it, it's on you, and you're never going to lose it. I never have the idea of, I hope it doesn't fall out. No, it's not going to fall out.
Right.
If that's what you're thinking, don't use that holster.
Get a new rig.
Yeah. And that's, and some of them get very expensive, but there's a lot of them that are not that expensive. In the world of shooting sports, you're going to end up with a bunch of them. Maybe there's room for a couple of them. One of the things that jumped out to me in regard to the retention thing was, I've noticed in the shooting sports, there's a lot of crossover. Right before this podcast, we're talking about shooting NRL Hunter.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of shooting competitors that'll compete in various sports. And one of the events that I've ran a few times, are I'm going to call them like adventure style matches, the Mammoth Sniper Challenge, the Thunder Beast Sniper Adventure Challenge.
Oof.
Those things, you have firearm on your side and you have long gun stuff. And a lot of these, I've seen this happen where they have pistol competitor. He's got this decked out race gun for the pistol side of things, and he's not in a positive retention holster.
Yeah.
And it's an unloaded magazine, or there's no magazine in the gun or whatever, but that thing comes out of there and
you're still
done, son.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
And that was at a match where the pistol points were like 20%.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So it was like,
not worth it.
But in the dedicated pistol match, I could see where you might not want a positive retention holster just because, again, it's one thing that could go wrong. So there's room for both.
Yeah.
I would say.
And I just want to clarify, when I say I don't want the positive retention, I don't want it to where I have to physically take the lock off every single time I draw the gun.
Sure.
Even my race holster for open has a lock on it. And when I'm not like loading and making ready to draw my gun and shoot the stage, my holster's locked.
Right.
But I can take that off and the gun is still secure in the holster unless I pull the gun straight up like a draw.
Yep.
So I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. I'm not walking around like, guns about to fall out.
No.
Yeah. Like,
and same thing.
Yeah.
I'll see shooters out on the range and I'll look at their holster and I'll go, that's not locked. I'll just walk up and lock it for them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want their firearm to fall out. That's crazy.
Nobody wants that.
Even if you're my competitor, like,
yeah.
If we're going head to head, I don't want your firearm to fall out. I'm going to lock that for you.
Well, that's the in the essence of true competition. If it is the guy that you are neck and neck with, nobody wants to win because there was a safety violation.
Yeah.
I want to beat you because I beat
just,
you.
Yeah, heads up play.
Yeah, and then also, if you're in the middle of the pack, like a lot of us, nobody wants a safety violation.
Period.
Yeah, it's just great
it
when
just
there's
puts bad vibes out there. Nobody wants it.
You want everyone to go home safe and everyone to have a good time. Ultimately, everyone wants to win, but you want to have a safe and fun time.
Yep.
Good experience.
So with the holster orientation, you mentioned kind of on your right hip, if you're right-handed or left hip, when you guys are playing around with it, do you say, for a novice, you're just setting up your belt for the first time, should you put that thing directly at 3 o'clock and then see how that feels, do some draws with it for a while, and then would you recommend inching that forward or just changing the angle? Or what direction would you go with that just to dial it in for yourself?
I would say just a generic starting point across the board. Yeah, put it at 3 o'clock, right on the side of your hip, right behind the hip bone. And then practice your draws and see where you're having to move your hand every time if it's not settling on the gun, and then move it. I would refrain from moving it further back though.
Sure.
Just because now you're having to move your whole body to get to it, and that's not as efficient as this. And then the other thing would be the further back it goes, when you draw the gun, you're risking flagging people behind you, which that sends you home early as well.
And that's absolutely perfect. And then to touch on that, dry fire in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
So you can see, and you're also looking for economy of motion. So if I'm drawing, say, surrender or hands above shoulders or hands relaxed at sides, if I'm doing this, I'm adding an extra step. There's no reason for me to do that. I want to be able to do this. Bring the hands to the gun comes up, and I'm able to present. I don't ever want to have to lean or move forward. You shouldn't have extra steps.
Nothing should be moving.
Yeah, nothing should be moving.
Hands and arms.
Economy of motion. So doing it in front of a mirror, you can see what you're doing right and wrong. You can't see it if you're just staring off into a wall.
Record yourself in slow motion.
Sure.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that with bolt manipulation. We were joking earlier that you can't miss fast enough to hit, but I try really hard because my 6 count from press of the trigger to bolt reset and back on the rifle, I've gotten pretty good at that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I did was just recorded it in slow motion so I could see.
So cool.
Yep. And so I'm sure that translates to
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that.
You've got your firearm selected. You've got holster. You got it where you want it. And you want your magazines as close to, if straightforward as 12 o'clock, maybe like 11:45, 11:30, and then just walk your way around.
Working your way back. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. How tight do you guys run your belts, and do you run them on your hips or slightly above your hips, like kind of around your belly button?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's one that's going to be dependent on the pants you're wearing. So you need
definitely wear pants.
Definitely wear pants.
Yeah.
Highly recommend, or shorts, one of the two.
Or jorts.
Either,
Jorts
whatever makes you happy. But so I like my holsters to sit just below my hip bones.
Okay.
So, and this is specific to ladies. So when I go buy shooting pants, try them on and make sure that your waistband is going to sit where you need it to be. Because I've bought pants that I love and think they'll be great for shooting, and I go to put my holster on, and now my holster's up at my belly button, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
Or if they're too low, which I think low rise is out now. So one, make sure your pants sit where you want your belt to sit. And then two, I like mine to sit right at or below my hip bones. And then how tight I want it is tight enough to where when I draw the gun or if I'm running, the holster and belt system isn't jumping around. But I don't want it too tight to where I feel like my hips are now restricted in trying to be explosive and move.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, to add on to that though, like say for adjustability sake for magazines, if you're doing full on sprints, which you will be doing, you want to have them tight enough so your magazines don't fall out. And that magazine could have been essential for the next position. You might have to do a reload, or, you know, if you run out of rounds, there's some stages that are 32 rounds and you shoot them, you know, very quickly, and time is of the essence. So you want to make sure that you've got adjustability. And sometimes you might just be doing a static shoot where you're shooting like an El Prez, where you're shooting static, mandatory reload, static. But then you can loosen them up a little bit so you're not and stuck like King Arthur's sword in the stone.
Yeah, so that goes back to the equipment on the mag pouches. Make sure the retention is adjustable on your mag pouches for that reason.
I would have never thought of that.
Yeah. So a lot of the Kydex ones are just Kydex and they sit in there. If you take off and run, your magazines are falling out. It's a yard sale. And then you have nothing in your next position. Or if it's too tight, you can't perform your reload fast enough and you're no longer efficient. So you want adjustable retention on mag pouches.
Yeah. And everyday carry, obviously, you just want good retention.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I had two takeaways from that. One was, as a generality, it sounds like you guys wear those belts where you would wear a belt on a pair of jeans.
Yes.
If you're wearing like those low rise pants.
Sure.
The other thing was, you talked about explosive action. You talked about sprinting. That's one of the cooler aspects of these sports. Like the verbiage run and gun sounds cool until you actually do it and realize it's way cooler than cool. Running and gunning. How often do you get to all out sprint, move,
shoot on the
athletic
move,
movement, and then also run a gun? That is way funner than people give it credit for just saying the words.
So
Love it.
We took Fred Eichler out, and you know he's part of the Hornady family, right? He went out to a match in Texas with us, and this match was a pretty extreme match. So you were in dusty Odessa, Texas, and you know, when you're moving, the dust just comes up all over the place. And there was a video that I watched, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. He goes, no, you're literally sprinting and shooting. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. And then I watch, I'm like, oh, I really am.
Well, you know how animated Fred is, too. So just added to, he's like, you're sprinting and shooting.
It's really cool.
Fred does everything at 11.
Oh, yeah.
There's no middle ground.
All or nothing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But that is cool. And I wanted to highlight that point because it is an athletic sport. There's a huge mental game to be hyper competitive at this sport. But for the novice, you might not have that mental game yet, but you do need to go into this stuff, setting up your equipment such that you can still be athletic. There are athletic movements. It pays to be in shape for some of this stuff. So that was one thing I wanted to highlight. Like you had mentioned, making sure it's tight enough that when you're running, it's not bouncing all over the place.
You can have access to the Hornady Handbook of Cartridge Reloading at your fingertips wherever you are with the Hornady Reloading Guide app available for iPhone and Android. Check it out today.
Now moving into a little bit of the meat and potatoes, right? So, Casey, we started this podcast and you talked about some main drills that you did with hyper levels of discipline at a very young age. Not everybody has that, and with everybody's busy, right? So with today's day and age of emails on your phone and work never ends, et cetera, what would you recommend to a novice getting into their first competition or somebody who shot maybe 2 or 3 competitions from a training standpoint that you feel is most effective of your time? Because I feel like in any sport, there are certain things that you will do forever. For baseball, for example, you will hit off a tee indefinitely. You know, there are major league guys hitting off a tee, practicing their swing, their step, weight transfer, all of that stuff. So get good at hitting off a tee if you're a baseball player. What what are some of those go-to drills as a pistol competitor that will, one, get them kind of on the fast track to honing in their skills, and two, that they'll end up using these drills, and maybe there's some nuance to them and there's some tweaks you can do, but for the duration of their shooting career?
That's a multifaceted question.
It is.
Yeah.
I said it's the meat and potatoes.
It is.
You can start with the meat and we'll switch to potatoes.
So even before live fire, I would always say dry fire. And dry fire will always make you better. It's not going to make you worse unless you're dry firing wrong. So make sure you're dry firing right.
Yeah.
You're making
With
sure
a
that
purpose,
with a purpose, with the intention of utilizing proper form and fundamentals. And then when you go out to the range, we know ammunition's expensive.
Yeah.
And once you pull that trigger, it's gone, right? So go out there with a purpose of, hey, what do I need to work on? What am I strong at? What am I weak at? If I'm strong at being fast, which is, one of my skill sets, I'm strong at being fast. So when I go out to the range, I work on accuracy. I might go out and, hey, I've got 300 rounds today, maybe less. Maybe I have 100 rounds and I've got a target. I'm going to put it out at 25 yards, 30 yards, and I'm going to work on headshots or small percentage shots from the draw. One shot, follow through, make sure I get a good shot, reset, come right back to the holster. And I'm looking for a good, well-aimed shot, good trigger press, and to the point where I can't necessarily call it via sight. I can't necessarily call it via vision, but I can call it by feel. So I'm like, boom, that was the perfect shot. I don't even have to go down there. I know that it's a low percentage shot and it's right in the center. Or boom, I jerk the trigger. I'm a right-handed shooter and I'm low and left. I can't do that. Let's reset. Why did I do that wrong? Okay, what do I have to do to make that right? And then let's go through it again and fix ourselves so that we're doing it right every single time. Now, if I'm a shooter that has great trigger control and I feel great at shooting groups, I'm going to work on the speed. I'm going to focus on, hey, how can I present my gun faster? How do I come out of the holster quicker? Am I using the right step process for my presentation? Why am I taking so long? Why is my first shot 1.5 seconds when it should be 1 second or below at 10 yards? So you have goals set in mind before you come out to the range as opposed to just shooting, because quality isn't, brought on by shooting 1,000 rounds. I used to think that. We used to think that.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do.
We go out there and shoot 1,000 rounds, 2,000 rounds, hands will be bleeding, and you're like, okay, what did you learn? That my hands hurt.
Yeah.
I think there's probably something to be said when you are a novice, just getting comfortable with the gun, just pulling the trigger.
Absolutely.
You might be able to get, a marked change in your competency as a shooter with volume, but that will only take you so far.
And you're out there. Time is precious. You want to be out there with your family. You want to get home to your kids, or you've got schoolwork to do. So if you don't have that much time, just write down, hey, this is what I want to be working on. I want to work on that accuracy today. I want to work on speed today. I want to work on positional work. I guess the beauty of shooting a handgun is it comes from the draw. So everything that you do when you're on the range come from the draw. Don't stay at the high ready. Don't pick off the table. Do everything from the draw. It's free. A draw is free.
Yeah.
So when you're out there, make sure that you're coming from the draw. And I think one of our bread and butter drills is called 20 Alpha. I've been doing it since I was in the Army. It's 20 shots, 4 strings, 5 rounds. If you get a USPSA or IPSC style target, you've got the Alpha zone. And what you're looking to do is shoot 5 shots as fast and as accurate as possible in that Alpha zone.
Yeah.
And you're looking for 20 of them. So you're doing that 5 shots, 4 strings, 20 shots total. If you're at 7 yards, a good time, of excellent time would be like 1.6 seconds, 1.7 seconds for 5 shots. It's very fast. It's very fast.
Sub 2.
Sub 2 seconds.
Most people are sub 2 coming out of the holster.
Yeah. So, it's not hard, but it's quite simple, but you haven't mastered it. You can go out there and shoot 5 shots in 5 seconds. You're like, oh, that's great, but it's not, you haven't mastered it. So you should be able to, try to shoot a sub 2 5-string shot on this drill. Now, once you've cleaned it, there's so many different things you can do. One, work on accuracy and push back. You can shoot it at 15, 20, 25 yards. Obviously, the time's going to go up. So you can, set your par times with that. You can also work on strong hand, weak hand, support hand. So or you can also do modified. So when we're out there training, you can start at 25 yards and bring yourself in, back up to 10 yards. Or you can say, hey, this one's going to be a strong hand string. And this one's going to be support hand. You can change it up and modify it for whatever flavor you want for that drill session.
I agree with all of that. And I'll add to it something you mentioned of practice what you're not good at, your weaknesses. If we only go out and practice our strengths, then we're going to look really good and feel good. But when we get to a match, you're going to get your ass handed to you because you didn't practice everything as a whole. And I can speak to that 100%. I hate strong and weak hand shooting because I'm not good at it. Or I wasn't as good at it.
Same.
So when I went to, so when Casey and I would go practice, I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do something that would give me confidence. And then, I could have a better practice because I felt good about myself. Well, after I struggled through so many matches of, tanking a strong hand or weak hand stage, he goes, don't shoot anything else at practice until you warm up with strong hand, weak hand, then freestyle. Don't touch the gun with both hands until you've cleaned the plate rack, strong hand and weak hand. And he would make me do that every single time we went to the range. And I was so mad at him to begin with. I was like, I hate this, until I finally got good at it. And then we go to the range and I'll just shoot strong hand, clean it, weak hand, clean it. I'm like, okay, let's start practice.
So good.
Then I go to a match and there's a strong hand only stage.
And you love it.
And all my competitors are, oh man, there's a strong hand only. That target looks, oh my God, how many shots is that? I'm like, just get out there and shoot it.
Yeah.
And it changes your mindset and your confidence and how you can attack a stage. And that's priceless. The other thing I'll touch on is how you said everything starts from the draw. Unless it's specified in a stage plan, yes, everything comes from the draw. Also, your reloads. When you go to change your magazine, don't change it down here. Practice a reload. Do it up here. Take advantage of those motions that, one, you're going to be training for anyway, but to where it's second nature. So anytime you pull the gun out of the holster, make it a draw. Use proper form. Anytime you have to change the mag, do it right here. Keep it in your workspace. Practice the form that you're training for and take advantage of all of these extra opportunities instead of, okay, well, I'm just changing my mag, but it's not on my training line. So I'm just going to, do it down here.
It's not under duress.
Yeah.
And
so
you'll see people put a magazine into
admin load.
An admin load.
Oh,
they'll stick a magazine when the gun's in the holster. That's like a pet peeve of mine. Like, take it out, load it.
Take advantage
you have
of a
to
draw.
do it anyway.
Yeah.
Take advantage of a draw and take advantage of a reload.
Yeah. And I like to say, it's like the dodgeball quote. If you could shoot with one hand on the gun, you could shoot with two hands on the gun.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
There you go. Like, a lot of people take that for granted. I love seeing that. And you can lose a competition on a one-handed shooting stage. Yes, absolutely. So it's really nice to work on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the reloading and the drawing, and I would assume holstering is in there as well. More out of safety, but like you said, if you're going to do it right.
Right.
You're going to have to do it anyway. So just make sure you're doing it functionally sound.
Yeah. Don't be lazy with it.
Ingrain the form and the fundamentals. Yeah.
Awesome. So that dry fire was a big one.
It's so big.
Yeah.
That's so underrated or overlooked. People, there's no value. The gun's not going off. You're still doing the same bad habits, whether the gun's going off or not, and you don't see it with live fire. You're not going to see your flinch because the gun's recoiling.
Yeah.
If you if that is your issue, if you have a flinch, you'll see it at home because you're going to go,
target panic.
So it's one of the best tools you can have in your tool bag.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it replaces live fire. No. Nothing replaces live fire. But that
supplements it really well.
Supplements it. I like that.
Or even just your mechanics. You might be over tense. You might have trigger freezes in live fire during competition, under duress. And then if you dry fire in front of a mirror, maybe you'll see your shoulders running high. And if your shoulders are running high, you're bringing unnecessary tension to the body from your biceps, triceps, forearms, all the way down to your trigger finger. And you're doing this each single time. And you're like, oh, wait, why am I shooting like this when I can be relaxed and have a neutral spine, neutral head, bringing my eyes to the sights? There's so many little things that you can see via recorded off a cell phone, dry firing with a partner, your wife, your husband, your kids. You can make it a family event. Me and my father used to do reload competitions. He'd set the timer, like old timer from the 80s, put a par time on it. We'd have guns up, beep, reload, and try to beat each other on the reload before the par time came back. It's just, things that stuck with me. It's so nostalgic.
Yeah, well, and kind of summarizing a lot of what you guys have talked about just now. So for the entry level, the novice competitor, one thing you could do that would cost you no money whatsoever, wouldn't burn any live rounds, is to set your belt up, make sure you're in a safe space with the condition of the firearm, and then you could record yourself or do it in a mirror, have somebody watch you, but you could do a really good draw, present the firearm, do a reload, come back, and then holster it and get more fluid with that.
Yeah.
Watch that, and you could do a dry fire in there, make you so you get your target acquisition, sight alignment, sight control, trigger press, and you could do all of that.
It costs you nothing.
No money.
Yep.
And if you did that 100 times a day versus a competitor that only does live fire practice but doesn't do those fundamentals like that, you're gonna shorten that curve.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like some sort of cheap snake oil, like but that's the reality is there is no shortcuts. But that right there, the hefty majority of competitors probably not doing that.
Yeah, like it's not the sexiest, but it's just like walking. Walking's so good for you. Or say a cowboy, they didn't get good at quick drawing like that, or a samurai didn't get good at swinging a sword without practicing. Same thing. Dry fire.
Yeah.
Dry fire. Yeah, I like that idea. Just come from the draw. Yep. Present. You can make a good trigger pull with, again, sight alignment, sight picture, and do a mag change, and then go back to the holster. Yeah. Just that right there.
Absolutely.
So good.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make it more complex if you want. You can put different targets on the wall, scaled to size.
Sure.
Or, I mean, I always just aim at light switch covers around the room. So, one, I'm aiming at a smaller target. I'm practicing transitions. I'm drawing the gun. I'm working on reloads. Like, you can make it as complex or as simple as you want. None of it is going to hurt you.
Yeah,
right.
It's only going to make you better.
Yeah. And if you make it a family event, I think it's fun to gamify it.
Then you're not taking time away.
$1 says I can draw faster than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$5 says I can reload faster than you. Like, it's just fun. Gamify it. What are you going to lose? Give money to your son? Give money to your wife?
Right.
Like, wow.
Yeah. So I've got 2 young boys, 8 and 6.
Perfect.
And we've got a little 22 and a swinger target in the backyard.
Oh,
and
it's so fun.
They get, it's like 3 inches, 2 inches, 1 inch, and you got like a 3/4 inch swinger. They hadn't been shooting for 10 minutes for the first time when we got that 22, and instantly it was about competition.
I can hit it.
Yeah.
So it's huge. Yeah.
But it once you control it, and I feel like a lot of us have that competitive drive anyway.
Always.
I mean, once you at that age, you can harness it, and dad has to step in and like set some rules, and I feel like they'll fall back to the rules, and
Absolutely.
but it made it a lot more fun.
Yes.
And what was like, well, we'd shoot for 10 or 15 minutes, turned into we're out there for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, this is going to get expensive.
Yeah.
So from the live fire standpoint, though, Casey, you mentioned that 20 alpha drill. That sounds like another really good way for a novice to get those fundamentals from again, the draw, the reloads, all of that stuff, and then that's a drill that you could do indefinitely for your entire career.
Your whole
We
career.
do that every single time we go to the range.
You can use it as a warm-up. You can use it as a cool-down. You could put it anywhere. If you feel like, hey, I'm shooting kind of terrible right now.
Yeah.
What happened? What do we typically do when we're shooting terrible?
Well, stop. Whatever we're doing, 20 alpha.
Or back to the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what 20 alpha does, it not only covers speed, accuracy, shot calling, recoil management, but you can also be paying attention to what you're doing in real time. So like if you're really honed in, you can be like, hey, third shot on my second string, I jerked it, or I heeled the gun, gave the gun recoil beforehand. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm too tense. Let me relax a little bit. And then then you're back in the zone.
Yeah.
I think, so we're big on, when we go to the range, minimal setup. You don't have to go to the range and have an entire USPSA stage course, field course laid out to have good training. Actually, I feel like you're going to get less training because you're going to want to run that field course and you're not going to work on something.
Yep.
We'll set up 1 to 3 paper targets. And if a plate rack is out there,
great.
That's our training day.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a very simple drill, the 20 alpha or some of the other things that we do. But I think from a shooting standpoint, execution standpoint, it is simple. You're just drawing, you're shooting 4 strings of 5 shots and you have to keep it in the A zone. Where it becomes complex is, like Casey's saying, you're mentally present for every single shot and can account for every single shot. Like he said, third shot, pulled the trigger a little too heavy. That shot's going to be low left. and you're having to pay attention visually, mentally, and feeling what you're doing to every single shot that goes off. That's where it becomes complex, is being able to shot call like that and know without even going down range to look at your target, that's what the whole pattern's going to look like. These are where those shots are.
Every time you press that trigger, every time you're sending a round down range, think of it as gathering information.
Yeah.
That's very prevalent in the long range community. You're looking for information.
Yeah.
You're doing it in the pistol side, you're just doing it faster, and there's more of it. Just every time you press that trigger, look for that information of what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and to summarize what you just said, it really sounds like practice with a purpose. You have to be present for what you are doing.
Yes, be there.
And that's very difficult with, I feel like, society, social media, cell phones. It's hard to dedicate a couple hours of anything where you are 100% present in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
When you're driving.
Yeah.
Like, how many times were you like, listen to a podcast, you're on the phone, you're like, well, that 1 hour drive felt like nothing. I don't remember anything. Like, you have to be present.
You do. Awesome. That is super helpful. And one of the things that I think is great about this is hearing all this, and me being very, very novice in the pistol competitive world, is a lot of these fundamentals transcend shooting sports. It doesn't matter what you're in.
Yeah.
Shotgun sports, trap shooting, skeet shooting, the long range stuff.
Archery.
A lot of the fundamental,
archery.
Archery's more of a mental game than almost anything.
Yeah.
But they transcend. So once you build that fundamental, it'll go through any shooting sport that you want to do, and probably translate to a lot of other things that aren't shooting sports.
The Hornady Rapid Safe Keypad Vault offers quick, dependable access to your firearm while providing security from unauthorized users. The Rapid Safe Keypad Vault is constructed of a heavy-duty 14-gauge steel housing and thick steel lid for tamper-proof security. The included RFID watch band tag and RFID decal can be selectively programmed to open this safe and any other Rapid Safe you own. The Rapid Safe Keypad Vault from Hornady Security.
One question I had for training. So I know as high-level competitors, it may be different, but for the guys getting into competition, how important is a shot timer to your training?
Very.
Super.
Yeah.
So would you recommend that the novice got a couple matches under their belt, get a shot timer?
Absolutely.
They're not that expensive. Midway's always got them on sale.
I would even go further to say, have a shot timer even before you go to a match.
To the first match.
Like understand what, because everything changes when you hear that beep.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. Wheels fall off.
Yeah, the wheels fall off.
It's like Mike Tyson. Was it Mike Tyson? Everyone has a plan until you get hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone has a plan until the timer goes off.
So get yourself used to hearing that beep and understanding, okay, when that beep goes off, it's go time.
Yeah.
Set up what you want to do, have the intention of your game plan, whether you're doing 20 alpha, you're doing just one shot draws, you have your goal. When that timer goes off, you should still be able to execute. Yeah. Some people don't do it. And
I actually see a lot of good level shooters that's the difference of them being at the top and not, because the timer gives them anxiety and they can't perform under that pressure.
Yeah.
They could be at practice and be amazing. But as soon as they get in match mode and that timer's there, it puts so much pressure on them. So I think starting as soon as you are buying your gear, your gun, equipment, a timer needs to be added to that list and start working with it. So you hear it, you're used to it, and it's not building the pressure to where the only time you're hearing a timer is when you go to a match. You need to be hearing it as soon as you start training.
I like it.
Yeah, like sometimes we'll go to the range and we might forget that shot timer at home, and you're like,
or the battery's dead, or something.
Battery's dead. You're like, well, this practice session's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So then we'll set up. I'll keep this quick. We'll set up a drill to where he'll draw and shoot on his own go, but I draw at the same time, but I can't shoot until he shoots,
and vice versa.
Yeah, and then we'll swap it up.
It's a target panic thing.
So it gives you a audible command to go off of, instead of just kind of hanging out. Oh, I'll draw my gun and shoot. Well, if there's nothing, they're not a timer or nothing to signal
push
you to go to push you.
There's no stressor.
Then you're not doing anything at efficient. I can't talk right now. You need a timer. Bottom line, you need a timer.
I get what you're saying though, and that's a neat piece there, because I don't have a shot timer.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to start being more serious about multi-gun or pistol-specific competition, I should probably invest in one of those.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's so many cool ones too. Kestrel makes one now. Yeah, Pack Timer makes a really cheap, affordable one. There's so many different. Some watches have them on them.
I bet
now.
there's a cell phone app.
There is. And I'll throw this out there. It doesn't have to be fancy.
No.
You just need an audible beep.
Yeah.
And if you want to if you want a par time, you just need an audible beep, par time, and be able to review your shot times. You don't need all the bells and whistles unless you want them.
Yeah.
But for entry level, looking at this, you just need something that's going to give you an audible start.
It sounds like, we a few minutes ago, I said you can practice with a purpose. To kind of summarize what you guys talking about. Well, the shot timer falls right into that. Practice with a purpose where you can set goals.
Yes.
And if you have shot timers that are, your individual shots, or you can set a par time for your reloads and stuff, then you can start setting goals.
And you can see your progress
document those,
or see your non-progress for the day.
Or what about that guy who just wants to work on their everyday carry draw?
Yeah.
Inside the waistband, how are you going to know if you're being efficient? You're going to draw yourself and like, wow, that was quick. Or no, hey, I just took my pistol out inside the waistband in under a second. Then you're like, okay, now I'm progressing. It just translates across all facets, all arenas. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate your insight on this because I know it's going to help me out. I know it's going to help a ton of listeners out as well.
So.
Yeah.
But I can't move on with the podcast. I'd be remiss if we didn't ask Casey the question that we ask everybody. So
I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah. So we got into this here, I don't know, a while ago, 100 episodes ago, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Of every time we have a new guest on the show, which isn't super often, but we have a new guest on the show, we ask him this question. And it's pretty dirty considering the fact that you shoot so many different things, that you compete in different stuff and you're a hunter.
Yeah.
But we ask it anyway. So we got to first paint a hypothetical world. And this is your world. So it could be post-apocalyptic world. It could be...
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it could be any world you want to live in.
Where I'm king.
Yeah, of course. He's still the fastest shooter. But in this world, you could have an infinite amount of guns. So any configuration. So long barrels, short barrels, suppressors, heavy, light, you name it. The world is your oyster there for as many guns as you want in any possible configuration. But the catch-22 is that you're a competitor, you're a hunter. These firearms all have to be chambered in the same cartridge, shooting the same bullet.
Shooting the same bullet.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. Now that's tough because in a world where you're shooting 9mm primarily, not the world's best hunting cartridge,
falls off.
But you're a hunter.
Yeah.
And you it's tough. So I summarized this to Jessie when I asked her on the last episode, but a lot of popular answers have been 10mm because I can still shoot with a pistol. I might not be the
grizzly
fastest.
Bear down.
I'm not the fastest in the world anymore, but I can still compete. And they're hunting bullet options. Like, for example, Hornady has a line of ammo called the handgun hunter. Perfect.
I use it all the time.
Yeah,
I
perfect
love that one.
for that kind of stuff. But then you've got 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 PRC because I like to hunt elk and stuff like that. So it's tough. But if you had to pick a cartridge, what cartridge would you pick?
And this has to be for competition and for hunting, or is it
For
just
everything?
Okay, so it's my world. It's post-apocalyptic, so it's super.
We're not competing anymore.
I live there all the time in my La La Land. We watch movies. I'm like, I love this movie. Like, I wouldn't do it that way, or I would do it that way.
Yeah.
I guess like a great all-around cartridge. And then I just learned more about this too through the marketing team here at Hornady. Probably maybe 7 PRC.
All right.
Yeah.
Touch blue, make it true. Podcast is over. I don't need to hear it anymore.
It's just too good. You can use it for everything.
Yeah.
You could take down anything in North America with it, possibly anything in the entire world with it. And in a post-apocalyptic world, that's what we're looking for. You don't necessarily want to be this close to your combatant. You want to have a little bit of range, and you want to be able to make sure that you can harvest good game with that cartridge. Now, I'd say 7.
7 PRC.
7
and
PRC.
even if you weren't post-apocalyptic, that was my answer too, by the way.
Sure. You could do PRS, NRL.
Yeah, so we've got one of our sponsored shooters, Jonathan Berry. He competes with the 7 PRC, which is pretty remarkable. NRL Hunter, though, and he competes in the PRS primarily, but in the NRL Hunter, there's a lot of 7 PRC presence. And then anything on this continent and most things on any other continent, as far as game-taking capability
Yeah.
and taking things at range. It's just a good answer. So,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Casey, I appreciate. Hopefully, you didn't just say
Yay.
that because of me.
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I learned it this week here at the Hornady factory, and I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of factories in my day. Whether it's in North America, Europe, Asia. She's like, "Hey, we're gonna do a factory tour." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Sure, sounds great." It was awesome. I
Yeah.
was like, everyone
Yeah.
here is important. It was a really fun time for us,
Mhm.
and we learned so much
Yeah.
with the tour at the Hornady facility. And thank you so much
Yeah.
for having us. It was great.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you guys here on site and also on the podcast. So, thanks again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Guys, thanks for tuning into this episode. I hope it was educational. I know it helped me. Hopefully, it helped you get into the world of competitive pistol shooting. If you've got a match around you, go watch, go compete. You won't regret it. Thanks again. We'll catch you on the next one.